So we were wondering when Larry Johnson was going to get on the board in the 2026 recruiting class. Another year where Ohio State's got a top 5 recruiting class so far. And he has officially done that with Khary Wilder, the number 242 player and the number 23 edge rusher in the country out of California. I'm Stephen. That's Andrew Gillis. He's on board. And this seemed like Khary took an official visit during the first weekend. And I'm not sure either one of us talked about him in a way that's like, hey, this is going to very quickly turn into a commitment. Not that they couldn't get it, but maybe it wouldn't turn around this quickly. And now it seems like over the past couple of days, momentum has shifted towards Ohio State, and it seems like Larry Johnson is about to get cooking here.
Yeah. Oh, man, did Ohio State need a kid like Khary Wilder in this class? I mean, you look at his recruiting ranking, he's the number 242 overall player in the class, number 23 edge rusher. We'll see if edge rusher sticks. He's listed at 6'4", 260, but he's got long arms and he's got room to grow. Like, you look at him physically and you're like, oh, like this kid can get bigger. Oh, this kid can expand, right? Like this kid can get stronger. And I don't think he's going to grow upwards, although perhaps he is a member of the class of 2026. He is still a junior in high school. So maybe he does grow taller, but I think putting on weight, to me, this reeks of Dominic Kirks. If you remember him from a couple of years ago, a kid from Ohio, 2024 class, commits his edge rusher. And I remember I went up there to talk to him, and he goes, "Coach loves my pass rushing ability," which is what Khary Wilder has. He's got those long arms. He's a great pass rusher. Like, you watch him on film, you listen to all these other people talk about him, the people that write these reports, and they love his pass rushing ability. And then he said, but Larry thinks as I grow, I'm going to start as a defensive end and I'm going to move to defensive tackle. And I think he might move to a 3-tech by the time that his career is said and done. So we'll see. I think having him on the board, though, definitely gives you some help. We saw this with Edric Houston. I think, that is maybe a little bit of a different example because he was a 5-star and he was an edge rusher, whereas like he's probably going to play right away. And he did, just not in the way that we thought. So I think this is a big commitment for Ohio State because this is somebody where if you play him at edge rusher, I think you like his long-term development, you like his pass rushing ability, you like what he could do moving forward. If you play him on the interior, I think you like the frame. I think you like expanding outward, as I said. I think you've got something to work with. And then, like you said, Larry Johnson, man, the amount of texts that we got from people at 614-350-3315 that were like, you're talking a lot about the offensive line, Andrew. You're talking a lot about Favor Akey, the running back who just committed. You're talking a lot about the corners. Where's the defensive line? Well, here we go. And I think this might be the start of it. And I'm sure we'll get into some names here that kind of keep an eye on over these next couple of weeks, couple of months. But right now, you add Khary Wilder. That's a big move just because you needed something. You needed to get on the board. And I think not just because you have a guy in the class, I think because you have Khary Wilder, I think you feel pretty good about, okay, this is a good jumping off point.
I mean, you're talking about Dominic Kirks. They're literally doing that with Edric Houston right now. He came here as an edge, and now he's going to be a starting defensive tackle.
I say that because I think Kirks might have a little bit of a longer trajectory, and I think
obviously Edric's a 5-star, so he can maybe do it quicker. But the method is the method. It's your talent level and how quickly you pick it up is how quickly you go through this. But Draymond Jones went through this. Ja'Shawn Cornell went through this. These guys who come in here as defensive ends and get turned into the 3-techs. Larry Johnson's not new to that. Edric Houston's the latest example of that, and maybe you're expecting Dominic Kirks to join that as Khary Wilder. It's not about, hey, he's going to be as good as Edric Houston. It's just, hey, they might be on the same plan. It doesn't mean it's the same timeline for how that plan is going to go, though. But I do wonder, Andrew, as you mentioned, this is number one for Larry Johnson coming off of a year where he had like 4 or 5 guys, so he's doing a good job restocking the room. But do you think we start to see the floodgates open with a defensive line recruiting now where you got one domino to fall, and as we inch closer and closer to the end of official visit season and into July, which is apparently turned into commitment season around the country, that's when you start to see more of these dominoes fall in the defensive line?
I think you could. I think that's certainly possible. The first weekend, we talked about Ohio State having Luke Wafel. We talked about them having Jake Cruel. So those are 2 edge rushers that are really, really highly touted that you like, that you think, okay, maybe Ohio State's in a decent shot here. You kind of go down the line and there's some other guys that, maybe we'll see. Keeson Eliezer, He's, I believe, got an official visit scheduled to Ohio State or it was June 13th. So, like, we'll see with him. We'll see with kind of these edge rushers. I think that is probably where you need your base of this class to come from, because you kind of look at the future of where this room is going to be. Bo Atkinson is not going to be here. CJ Hicks is not going to be here. Kenyatta Jackson, Caden Curry. These guys are not going to be here. Edric Houston, your prized edge rusher from the last class or in 24, is now a defensive tackle, and I think he's going to be a great defensive tackle, but he's a 3-tech. You have Zion Grady, who's a freshman, but you need to kind of supplement at edge. So I think that is where I think Ohio State is probably going to have to push, and that is, I think, where you're going to start to see maybe some really significant effort started to be put in this class. But I think you're right. I think, Jameer Perez is a defensive tackle from Glenville. He's going to take an official visit to Ohio State on June 20th. We'll see what happens with him. He's currently committed to Florida. He's an interior guy, but I think as these official visits start to wrap up, you can go reasonable for him, reasonable for him, reasonable for him, reasonable for him. So yeah, I think this is absolutely reasonable for Ohio State to look at and say, this is where this is headed. This is what Ohio State can do. So I think there are certainly a number of options for Ohio State, and that is, I think, the good part, because when you only have one guy in your class, you need some numbers.
614-350-3315. Khary Wilder, the latest addition to Ohio State's recruiting class, the first defensive lineman on the board out of Gardena, California. Junipero Serra out there in California, number 242 player, number 23 edge rusher in the country. 2-week free trial, $399 after that. That's the first place we went with this information before we even did this video or did anything else. 614-350-3315. And go listen to Buckeye Talk wherever you find podcasts. He's Andrew, and I'm Steven. And that's Khary. See ya.